The Hernandez family home stood warm and bright under the soft glow of antique lamps. Outside, the evening air was cool and scented with jasmine drifting in through open windows. Inside, long wooden tables spread across the living room, each one dressed in white linen cloths and small bouquets of freshly cut flowers, plates of homemade empanadas, bowls of ripe tomatoes, olives in small porcelain dishes, and a round loaf of fragrant bread waited for eager hands. A silver pitcher brimmed with sparkling water mixed with slices of lemon and sprigs of mint. Glasses clinked gently as the first guests arrived, each one greeted by the cheerful smiles of Mrs. Hernandez and her daughter Isabella. Isabella, dressed in a simple blue dress that fluttered at her knees, moved among her mother's friends with the ease of someone born to entertain. She laughed with her cousin Javier about a shared memory from childhood, then darted toward the kitchen to check on the empanadas, ensuring they came out golden and crisp. Mr. Hernandez, a tall man with kind eyes framed by silver hair, stood near the piano at the far end of the room. He welcomed neighbors from down the street, offering them chairs and encouraging them to help themselves to snacks. The melody of soft classical music floated from a small speaker, and the guests settled comfortably on plush sofas and wooden chairs arranged in a semicircle around the grand piano. Rosa, the family's maid, worked quietly in the background. She had cared for the Hernandez household for many years. Every morning she dusted the shelves and polished the floors until they shone. Every afternoon she prepared the children's snacks and made sure Mr. Hernandez's reading glasses rested gently on his desk. She knew the rhythm of each family member's day better than anyone, yet she never spoke about her own life beyond the house. She moved with grace among the guests, topping up water glasses and carrying plates back to the kitchen, always with a soft smile and an occasional nod to guests who thanked her. Isabella leaned toward her mother as the last of the guests arrived. "Let's do something fun tonight," she whispered, her eyes sparkling. "Everyone is in such a good mood. I want to surprise them." Mrs. Hernandez looked curious. "What do you have in mind?" she asked. Isabella's grin widened. "Let's have Rosa play the piano. She's so sweet. It'll be like a little show for our friends." Mrs. Hernandez hesitated. "Rosa doesn't really play in front of people, does she?" Isabella shrugged lightly. "Maybe not. But she's always singing softly while she cleans. Perhaps she knows more than we think." Mrs. Hernandez smiled and nodded. "Okay, let's see what she says." Isabella led Mrs. Hernandez toward the kitchen where Rosa was stacking plates. "Rosa," Isabella began cheerfully, "would you do us a favor? Could you come play something on the piano for our friends? Just a little piece for fun?" Rosa's hands froze for a heartbeat. She looked up at Isabella, her dark eyes wide. "Me, señora?" she asked softly. Her accent was gentle, a hint of the countryside in the way she spoke. Isabella nodded. "Yes, I think it will cheer everyone up." Rosa glanced toward the living room, saw the guests smiling and talking, and bit her lower lip. "I am not sure," she began. Mrs. Hernandez placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "Rosa, please, we would be delighted. No need to worry, just a simple tune." Rosa ducked her head, her long braids swinging over one shoulder. She took a deep breath. "All right," she said. "I try." They led her into the living room, and the guests fell silent as they noticed Rosa approaching the piano. A round of polite applause broke out. Some of the women clapped softly, encouraging her. Some of the men chuckled among themselves, expecting a light-hearted, possibly clumsy recital. Isabella sat on the armrest of a nearby chair, her breath quick. With excitement, Mr. Hernandez straightened his posture. "Whenever you are ready," he said kindly. Rosa stood before the piano bench, her hands folded in front of her. The wood of the piano gleamed under the chandelier light. She smoothed her simple cotton dress and sat down cautiously. A few guests leaned forward. Louise, the neighbor who taught drawing to local children, whispered to his wife, "I can't believe she agreed." His wife whispered back, "It's sweet of them to ask, but I doubt she's practiced much." In the corner, Señora Ortega, an elderly friend of Mrs. Hernandez, whispered, "Perhaps she'll surprise us." But laughter danced in many eyes. They expected a few wrong notes, a stumble, maybe a song with shaky timing. The sense of anticipation, mixed with playful teasing, filled the air. like the faint scent of jasmine still drifting in from outside. Rosa rested her hands on her lap and looked at the keys. She lifted her gaze to the painted portrait above the piano, a portrait of Mrs. Hernandez's grandmother playing the same instrument many years ago in Spain. Rosa closed her eyes for a moment and took a steadying breath. On the piano pedal, and then the other, she shifted forward slightly. The guests watched in quiet curiosity. Then she placed her fingers lightly on the keys. The click of the ivory under her touch was the only sound in the room. For an instant, time seemed to slow. The laughter and talking vanished. Guests held their breath. Someone's water glass rattled against the table, but no one moved to stop. The small speaker music faded away in the minds of everyone present. Only the real piano, played by Rosa's gentle hands, remained. Her fingers hovered. Then she pressed down a single key. The note that emerged was pure and full, filled the room with warmth. It vibrated off the wooden floorboards and bright walls. It shimmered like sunlight on still water. Every person in the room felt it. The single sound broke the momentary stillness, yet held it all together. Rosa's finger lifted and rested. The note lingered, echoing softly before fading into silence. It was an ordinary note, yet it carried something special. It contained years of secret practice, of private moments spent at this very piano when the house was quiet and no one watched. It held Rosa's love for music and the gentle care she had poured into it, unseen by the family. Guests exchanged glances.
Ow.
Luce's jaw dropped. Señora Ortega clapped her hands softly against her chest. Mr. Hernandez leaned forward, his eyes bright. Isabella's mouth fell open with delight. Rosa opened her eyes and met their faces. She smiled faintly, almost shyly, as if surprised that such a simple note could make so much noise. She moved her fingers, and the next note began. But that belonged to part two. Tonight, the Hernandez family and their friends would remember that first moment forever. In just one note, Rosa had shown them something beautiful hidden beneath. The everyday rhythm of life, the laughter, the gentle teasing, they all knew it would be replaced now by respect and wonder. The candles flickered, the flowers seemed brighter, and even the jasmine scent seemed richer. Simple dinner party had turned into something magical, all because one person, often unseen, was finally heard. As Rosa let the first note fade, the room held its breath. Her fingers hovered above the keys again, and the hush felt warm, like a soft blanket. The guests watched her face. Her eyes shone with a quiet joy, and a gentle smile curved her lips. She seemed to gather herself, as if drawing breath for something deeper. Then she pressed another key. The second note rang out smooth and clear, sliding into a short, sweet melody. It floated through the air, touching each listener's heart. Mrs. Hernandez closed her eyes, remembering how she had heard Rosa humming quietly in the kitchen one morning. And now that gentle humming had become real music, filling the house with beauty. Isabella sat on the edge of her chair, leaning forward so she would not miss a single moment. She felt a thrill of pride for her family's maid, who had stood shy and humbled just minutes before. As Rosa played, her hands danced lightly. Over the ivory keys, the melody grew, adding a soft rhythm that rose and fell like waves on a calm sea. Each note matched her soft rhythm of breathing, steady and sure. The chandeliers above cast flickering light on her hands, making them look almost like butterflies in flight. A shaft of moonlight from the open window fell on her braid, giving it a silver sheen. The flowers on the table seemed to nod in time with the music. Around the room, guests sat as still as statues. No one dared move or whisper. Even the small speaker that had played background music earlier was forgotten. Rosa's piano was the only sound that mattered. The silver pitcher and glasses on the table trembled ever so slightly, as if the melody itself had weight. Mr. Hernandez moved his foot softly, tapping to the rhythm, but he stopped himself, remembering how special this moment was. He let his head rest against the back of his chair and simply listened. In that hush, memories of Rosa's quiet kindness filled the minds of the guests. They recalled how she had once caught Isabella before she tumbled off a chair. They thought of the afternoons when Rosa sat with Mrs. Hernandez, gently holding her hand while she cried over a sad letter. They realized that she had been part of their family's story, even if they had never fully seen her inner life. Now her music told them who she truly was, an artist, a storyteller, a person of deep feeling. As the melody shifted into a gentle, flowing section, Rosa's fingers moved faster, yet never rushed. The sound was like soft raindrops on a calm pond, each one clear and bright. The guests felt their hearts lift. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Some smiled, tears glinting in their eyes. Nobody judged or mocked now. The earlier laughter felt distant, like a forgotten dream. In its place grew admiration and wonder. Near the piano, Senora Ortega leaned closer. She remembered a time when she had performed in her youth before age had slowed her. She knew the courage it took to play before an audience. She reached out and gently placed her hand on Rosa's shoulder, offering silent support. Rosa felt the warmth of that touch and let it guide her. She moved into the next passage of the piece, a bright, hopeful tune that sang of new beginnings. The bright melody sparked a light in the room. The children who had come with their parents peeked from behind chairs, their eyes wide with curiosity. One small boy climbed onto Javier's lap, covering his ears playfully, only to uncover them again when the music made him smile. The guests forgot their snacks and drinks. Of course, they would return to them after the performance, but for now, their full attention belonged to this moment of pure, live music. Isabella felt a lump in her throat. She had meant only to surprise her guests with a fun joke, but now she realized the magic she had helped reveal. She looked at her mother, whose proud eyes shone with happy tears. Then she looked at Mr. Hernandez, who sat straight and tall, as though he had glimpsed something true about his home for the first time. Even Javier, the cousin who teased everyone, sat with a soft smile, clearly moved by the beauty of Rosa's gift. Rosa moved into the final section of the piece. The melody slowed, becoming tender and full of heart. Her left hand held a gentle chord while her right hand played a simple, sweet tune above it. The sound felt like a promise that kindness and art could bring people together, that hidden talents deserved to be seen. The jasmine scent from outside drifted in again, and for a moment it seemed to dance with the notes, wrapping the room in light and fragrance. When Rosa played the last note, she leaned forward and let her fingers lift slowly. The final tone lingered, a soft echo that faded into the gentle hum of normal life returning. Then the room broke into a roar of applause. Hands clapped loudly. Some guests stood and cheered. Tears fell freely from more than one pair of eyes. Mrs. Hernandez rushed to Rosa and hugged her tightly, whispering words of thanks she could not quite find. Isabella jumped up and ran around to the front of the piano, beaming. In the joyful uproar, Mr. Hernandez spoke. Rosa, he said clearly, his voice a bit shaky, that was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. The guests nodded, stamping their feet and calling out praise. One of them cried, "You have to play again." But Rosa gently shook her head, smiling shyly. Her cheeks were warm and her eyes bright with happiness. She had taken a single step onto that piano bench, and now she felt she could fly. After a moment, someone fetched a small vase of flowers from the end table. They placed it on top of the piano with a flourish. The bright red petals shone against the dark wood. Rosa looked at the flowers and laughed softly, a sound like bells. Then she stood up and accepted bouquets of praise from each guest. She spoke, quietly thanking them, her voice soft but sure. She told them she had learned to play as a child and practiced in the evenings when the house was still. No one knew until now. The room buzzed with newfound respect. The neighbors who had once joked about her now asked her polite questions about music. Someone offered to help pay for new sheet music. Others asked if she would teach their children. Rosa answered each question with calm grace, telling them she would think about it. She said the music was a gift she wanted to share. The Hernandez family beamed with pride. As the applause died down, Mrs. Hernandez cleared plates from the table and passed around small desserts. Chocolate flan, fruit tarts, and sweet churros appeared. Guests chatted about the performance, their earlier small talk forgotten. They spoke of how surprises can open our eyes to the beauty around us. They spoke of hidden talents in people we think we know. They spoke of gratitude and how a simple note can change everything. Rosa moved quietly to one side, her work momentarily forgotten. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. It showed a younger Rosa, standing beside the same piano, but alone. She closed her eyes, held the photo to her heart, and then tucked it away again. Her heart was full. She felt seen. As the evening light faded into night, the guests began to leave. Each one gave Rosa a warm hug or handshake. They promised to return next week for a small gathering where Rosa would play again. Rosa nodded and thanked them. She felt excitement and a gentle tremor of nerves at the promise of more music. When the last guest stepped into the cool night air, the Hernandez family and Rosa stood together in the silent room. The table was empty of dishes, and the flowers rested on the piano. Mrs. Hernandez took Rosa's hand and led her to sit at the piano once more. "Would you like to try something new?" she asked softly. Rosa sat and looked at the keys, closed her eyes and smiled. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I would." And so the house, once quiet and ordinary, would now carry new music through its halls. Rosa's gift had transformed a playful joke into a moment of true wonder. Her talent had planted a seed of art and respect that would grow in the hearts of everyone who heard it. Second part of her story had begun, and it promised even richer notes to come. The soft echo of that single beautiful note still danced in the air when Rosa closed her eyes and let her fingers rest on the keys. The room remained silent for a heartbeat longer, as though the walls themselves were listening. Mrs. Hernandez, her heart still fluttering, reached for her daughter's hand. Isabella squeezed it, her eyes shining with wonder. Rosa sat straight, her shoulders relaxing as she sensed the change around her. A gentle murmur began, barely louder than a secret. A woman seated near the window whispered, "Did you feel that?" Her friend nodded, her eyes wide. "It was like the piano spoke directly to my soul." Others exchanged looks of awe. The soft classical music that had played earlier remained forgotten. In its place, Rosa's music created its own atmosphere, intimate, powerful, alive. Opened her eyes and met the gaze of each guest. She saw respect and admiration, not the teasing she had expected. A surge of warmth filled her. She had spent years practicing when no one watched, her ears drinking in every note, her shoulders stiff with nerves. Now, in that living room, she realized her practice had meaning. Her life outside this house, hidden and quiet, had prepared her for this moment. She placed her hands on the keys again, this time ready to begin a new piece. Her fingers lifted and pressed down simultaneously in both hands, creating a gentle chord that rolled forward like a small wave. The sound filled the room with richness. The guests leaned forward as if drawn by an invisible thread. The living room, which had been filled with laughter and clinking glasses just an hour ago, transformed into a concert hall of deep emotion. As Rosa played, her backstory unfolded in her music. She had learned to play as a child living in a small village. She and her siblings had gathered around an old, out-of-tune piano that belonged to their school. The teacher there had noticed her curiosity once and taught her a simple melody. Rosa practiced each evening by the glow of a single candle, her family listening in hushed delight. But as she grew older, her responsibilities in her own home multiplied. She had to work in the fields, cook meals, and care for younger siblings. The piano remained silent for years. Then, fate brought her to the Hernandez household. She carried her memories of music in her heart, but never spoke of them. She dusted and polished, prepared meals, and tidied bedrooms. She hummed quietly as she worked, but no one connected those soft tunes to the art she had once loved. Until tonight. The melody shifted into a gentle waltz, 3 beats per bar, each note rising and falling like a tender breath. The chandeliers flickered as if in applause. Guests closed their eyes, letting the music carry them. Isabella imagined the moonlight dancing on a ballroom floor in a grand palace. Mr. Hernandez pictured his grandmother, long gone, gliding across the stage in a flowing dress. Everyone felt connected by Rosa's song, a shared memory of beauty and grace. As the music moved into its middle section, Rosa added small, flourishes tiny trills that sparkled like morning dew. Her right hand played a bright melody, while her left added a steady, comforting rhythm. The two parts blended seamlessly. It was as though a conversation passed between her hands. One spoke of hope, the other of kindness. Guests felt a surge of emotion. A single tear escaped the corner of someone's eye. Another guest swallowed hard, moved by the gentle power of the music. Near the back of the room, Javier, Isabella's cousin, sat with his arms crossed. He had teased others and joked about the surprise act. Yet now, he sat motionless, his mouth slightly open, his rough exterior softened. He remembered a time when his own mother had sung lullabies to him as a child. He had not thought of that memory in years. Rosa's music brought it back, along with a warm ache in his chest. Mrs. Hernandez noticed this and felt a surge of pride for her cousin's unexpected reaction. She knew her family sometimes overlooked the small gifts people carried. Tonight, those gifts shone brightly. She reached over and gently placed a hand on Javier's arm. He looked over, blinking, then gave her a small, grateful smile. Rosa's melody changed once more, moving into a gentle, reflective passage. The music felt like walking through a quiet forest at dusk, the trees whispering as the wind passed through their branches. The guests breathed in unison, caught up in the scene. Rosa painted with sound. Outside the window, the jasmine blossoms trembled in the night breeze, as if nodding to the music. Mrs. Ortega, the elderly neighbor who once performed in a youth orchestra, sat close to the piano. She remembered the thrill of playing for an audience and the quiet moments afterward, when the applause faded and only the echo remained. She listened with closed eyes, tears shining on her cheeks. When the reflective passage ended, she leaned forward and whispered softly, "Beautiful." Rosa felt that word like a caress. She moved into the final section, a triumphant, uplifting melody that built slowly, note by note, until it soared. Her fingers moved confidently, dancing across the keys with growing intensity. Drums of emotion pounded in her chest, and she let her soul pour into the music. The sound filled every corner of the room, bouncing off the polished wooden floors. In high ceilings, guests rose to their feet even before the last note faded. They clapped, stomped their feet, and cheered. Some wiped their eyes tears of joy and admiration. Isabella jumped forward, her face bright. She wrapped her arms around Rosa, hugging her tightly. "That was amazing," Isabella whispered. "You are amazing." Rosa stepped away from the piano, her cheeks flushed, her eyes shining. She brushed her braid behind her shoulder and looked around at the crowd. She saw Mr. Hernandez weaving through the guests toward her. He carried a small tray with 2 cups of hot chocolate, her favorite, though he had never known. He offered 1 cup to her. She took it and sipped, feeling the warmth spread through her, as comforting as the music she had just shared. The guests milled about, offering congratulations and praise. One neighbor, a schoolteacher, asked Rosa if she would ever consider teaching piano to children. Rosa's eyes widened in surprise, then softened as she nodded. "I would like that very much," she said. Others echoed similar sentiments. They wanted to help her share her gift. Mrs. Hernandez realized that this night had changed everything. She had planned a simple dinner party, expecting light laughter and gentle jokes. Instead, she had witnessed a transformation, not just in Rosa, but in each person who heard her music. The family and their friends had been reminded that every person carried hidden depths, untold stories, and gifts that could surprise and delight. As the excited chatter continued, Rosa moved to the piano again. She sat down lightly and ran her fingers across a few keys, producing a soft, playful tune. Laughter followed, joyful and kind. It was no longer a joke, but a genuine moment of shared happiness. The guests returned to their seats, and the room filled with a gentle, contented buzz. In the soft glow of the lamps, while guests sipped their drinks and nibbled dessert, Rosa shared a bit of her story. She spoke quietly of her village, her childhood lessons, and the long years she thought her playing had ended. She told them she had never expected to play again in front of an audience. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion. Mrs. Hernandez reached over and squeezed her hand, offering silent support. Neighbors listened eagerly. They asked about her favorite pieces and which composers she loved. Rosa described the simple waltzes she had learned first, then the more complex works. That had challenged her. She spoke of the joy she felt when her teacher praised her. She spoke of the nights she practiced by candlelight. Each detail made the guests lean closer, as though each word contained a melody of its own. By the end of the evening, the dining room was filled with plans. The neighbors wanted to organize a small recital at the community center. Children begged to sign up for lessons. Mrs. Hernandez promised to help arrange everything. Rosa looked at each friendly face and felt a swell of gratitude. Her life was changing in ways she had never imagined. When the guests finally said their goodbyes, the family and Rosa stayed behind to tidy up. Plates were collected, chairs pushed in. Isabella washed the last few dishes, while Rosa dried them. Mr. Hernandez polished the silverware they used. Mrs. Hernandez folded the tablecloths, her mind buzzing with excitement for what was to come. Once the kitchen was clean and the house quiet, the family gathered around the piano one last time. Mrs. Hernandez brought a small bouquet of jasmine from the garden, placed it on top of the instrument. The night was cool outside. That scent lingered in the air. Rosa sat down at the piano bench again. She looked at her hands, then at the keys. She closed her eyes and let her fingers rest lightly. She pressed a single key, letting the note ring out softly into the peaceful household. In that gentle moment, the Hernandez family knew their home would never be the same. Rosa's music had opened their hearts. It had changed them all. As the final note faded into the night, they all felt a promise of new beginnings, shared art, of respect and celebration of hidden talents. The third part of Rosa's story had revealed her true gift, and the future held even more melodies, waiting to be played. The applause still rang softly when Rosa rose from the piano bench. Her cheeks glowed and her breath came in gentle waves. The chandeliers above her sparkled as though celebrating her triumph alongside the guests. In one moment, the room had shifted from playful chatter to a place of deep respect. No one dared speak their earlier jokes aloud. Instead, they shared glances of wonder and gratitude. Mrs. Hernandez stepped forward, placing a proud hand on Rosa's shoulder. "That was beautiful," she said, voice warm. "You have given us a gift tonight." Rosa bowed her head, her braids swinging over one shoulder. She searched for words but found none. Instead, she offered a shy smile and simply nodded. Guests moved closer, forming a small circle around her. One woman wiped tears from her eyes. A man with gentle, gray-streaked hair said softly, "I never expected such art from someone I thought I knew so well." His words held no shame, only the honest surprise of discovering beauty in an unexpected place. Isabella slipped around to Rosa's other side. She leaned in and whispered, "You were born for that piano." Rosa's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to gently squeeze Isabella's hand. She could feel the love and support in that simple touch. In that moment, all fear and doubt melted away. She let the warmth of the family's acceptance fill her heart. The small wooden floorboards under her feet felt solid and true. Mr. Hernandez cleared his throat, gently tapping a dessert fork against his empty plate. "Friends," he began, his voice steady, "tonight we witnessed something special. Talent hidden for too long? I think we should celebrate this in a bigger way." A murmur of agreement rose. Someone suggested hosting a small concert at the town hall. Another guest proposed creating a fund to buy Rosa new sheet music and help her learn more pieces. Mrs. Ortega, the elderly neighbor, offered to lend her collection of classical scores. Each idea grew more generous than the last. Rosa listened, stunned by the kindness of each suggestion. She had only intended to play one simple tune, yet here were grown adults eager to support her art. She cleared her throat and spoke softly. "Thank you all," she said, voice trembling slightly. "I never dreamed of such kindness. I would like to share music with others, if you will help me." The room erupted into applause once more. Chairs scraped back as neighbors stood to surround her with their encouragement. As the guests settled again, small plates of dessert were passed, creamy flan dusted with cinnamon, bite-sized cheese pastries, and cups of rich coffee. The clink of spoons and soft chatter returned, but now the talk centered on music. Children pressed close to Rosa as she sipped her coffee, asking questions. A little girl in a pink dress asked, "What song will you teach me first?" Rosa smiled and held out her hand. "Perhaps Twinkle, Twinkle," she said, laughter bright in her eyes.
Oh.
The girl giggled and nodded eagerly. Across the room, Mr. Hernandez and a neighbor sketched a plan on paper napkins. They wrote down ideas. Weekly piano lessons, a recital in 2 months, small travel stipend for Rosa to attend workshops in the city. Mrs. Hernandez offered to handle invitations and logistics. She knew the perfect hall at the community center. She imagined the stage. Lights and folding chairs, the hush that would fall before Rosa played. In her mind, she saw her maid stepping forward again, this time with confidence shining in her posture. While the adults planned, Rosa moved toward the piano once more. She sat on the bench, her fingers brushing lightly over the keys. Ish tried. A gentle chord, then a simple scale. The sound was soft but sure. The family gathered around, offering quiet advice. Javier, who had teased just hours earlier, leaned to her and said, "Try the G major scale. We'll wake up those fingers." Rosa laughed, a clear, joyful sound. The teasing tone was gone. It was playful help from a cousin, now proud of her. Senora Ortega took a seat at the piano stool beside Rosa. "Let me show you a chord progression I used to teach," she said. She placed her hands gently over Rosa's and guided her fingers. Rosa followed, her eyes bright with curiosity. The chord rolled out smooth and warm. Mrs. Hernandez snapped a quick photo on her phone, a moment she wanted to remember forever. The image captured the two women, one old and one new to this stage, sharing the gift of music together. Outside the windows, the jasmine-scented breeze drifted in, carrying the distant sound of crickets. Inside, the laughter of children and the low voices of grateful guests filled the air. Plates of dessert sat half-eaten on tables, forgotten. For a time, as everyone reveled in the joy of discovery, Rosa's life had changed in just one evening. She felt inspired and hopeful, eager to learn and teach in turn. As the clock hands moved toward bedtime, the guests prepared to depart. One stopped to shake Rosa's hand or embrace her. They promised to help, to support her dream. One neighbor handed over a small envelope. "This is to help buy new sheet music," he said. Rosa held it carefully, overwhelmed by the trust placed in her. She promised to use it well, to honor their generosity. After the last guest left, the Hernandez family gathered in the quiet living room. The piano remained open, its keys waiting. Rosa stood beside it, still holding the envelope. Mrs. Hernandez approached and placed a hand on her arm. "We are proud of you," she said simply. "You have inspired us all." Rosa's eyes glistened. She looked at each family member, Isabella, Javier, Mr. Hernandez, and saw in their faces a shared excitement for the future. Mr. Hernandez spoke then. "Tomorrow, let us visit the music shop in town," he said. "We will choose new pieces together." Rosa felt a glow in her chest. She nodded and smiled. In her heart, she imagined the dusty piano at the community center, the children's eager faces as they learned, and the hush that would fall when she raised her hands above the keys at the first recital. That night, as Rosa lay in her small attic room, she thought of the piano standing proudly in the living room below. She thought of the notes she had played and those she would learn. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from sadness but from the purest joy. She whispered a quiet prayer of thanks for the family who had seen her gift and the friends who had nurtured it. In the days that followed, the Hernandez home buzzed with plans. Isabella posted invitations, Javier measured the stage area at the community hall, and Mrs. Ortega lent old music books from her collection. Rosa practiced with new vigor, her hands flying across the keys each morning before dawn, each evening after chores. She felt a new rhythm in her life, a blend of work and music, care and creation. When the day of the recital arrived, the hall filled quickly. Neighbors, friends, and curious townsfolk took their seats. Flowers adorned the stage, the lights dimmed and a hush fell. Rosa stepped forward in a simple dress, her braid neatly tied back. She sat at the piano, took a deep breath, and let her fingers find the first chord. The notes rang out clear and confident. In that moment, the maid became an artist. The audience listened, rapt, as Rosa shared her story in melody. And each note echoed the promise that had begun with that simple first note in the Hernandez living room. The small town still talked about Rosa's recital weeks after it happened. Every morning, neighbors would greet one another with a smile and a nod, remembering how the living room piano's gentle music had sparked something beautiful. On this bright Saturday, Mrs. Hernandez and Isabella walked down Main Street toward the little music shop. Rosa followed them, her heart fluttering with joy and a touch of nervous excitement. She carried a small purse that held the envelope of money, gifted by friends for sheet music. In her hands, she also held a list of pieces she wanted to learn. The music shop stood at the corner, its wooden door painted soft blue. A wind chime tinkled as they entered. Inside, tall shelves held books of music with colorful covers. Friendly face peeked out from behind the counter. Mr. Alam smiled as Mrs. Hernandez approached. "Good morning," he said. "I heard about the recital. Congratulations to Rosa." His kind eyes crinkled, led them to a row of new sheet music displayed in wooden racks. Rosa's eyes shone as she saw the titles: simple waltzes, gentle preludes, and a few bright pieces by famous composers. She ran her finger along the pages, imagining the sounds each one would make. Isabella fingered a playful tune called Morning Dance, while Mrs. Hernandez smiled at a gentle lullaby named Moonlight Whisper. Rosa picked up a volume of simple classical songs she had loved as a girl. "We have a small piano at the community center," Mrs. Hernandez said softly. "Soon we will hold regular lessons there." Mr. Alam listened and nodded. He offered to order any hard-to-find pieces and to tune the community center piano for her. Rosa felt gratitude bloom in her chest. She had dreamed of a life filled with music, but she never imagined such warm support. With their new sheet music in hand, the women left the shop and headed home. A gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine through the air. Birds sang in the trees overhead. Every step felt light, as though the world itself had joined them in. Celebrating Rosa's gift? That afternoon they arrived at the community center, a small brick building with tall windows and soft yellow curtains. Inside, chairs were neatly arranged in rows facing a modest stage. A grand piano, its wood polished to a soft shine, stood at the center. Children's drawings of musical notes and flowers hung on the walls, giving the room a friendly, hopeful feel. Rosa stood at the piano bench, her sheet music open on the stand. A group of children, ages 7 to 12, sat before her. Their eyes were bright with curiosity. Some clutched small notebooks and pencils, ready to learn. A few parents stood at the back, eager to see their children's first piano lesson. Mrs. Hernandez watched from the doorway, her heart full. Rosa smiled at the children. "Good afternoon," she said in a gentle voice. "Today we will learn a simple melody together." She lifted her hands above the keys and pressed the first notes slowly, demonstrating the proper finger position. The children copied her, giggling as their fingers tapped the keys. The simple tune heard clear and soft, like little birds singing. She guided each child, helping them place their fingers correctly. She showed them how to read the notes and count the beat. When one boy hit a wrong key, she leaned over and laughed softly. "That's okay," she said. "Every great musician makes mistakes. It helps us learn." He grinned and tried again, his confidence growing. As the lesson went on, Rosa moved among the students, offering gentle praise. "Very good," she said to one girl who played a perfect measure. "You have a lovely touch." The girl beamed, her cheeks pink with pride. Parents nodded at the back, whispering thanks. Some wiped tears from their eyes at the sight of their children's joy. After the first lesson, everyone gathered around a small table with juice and cookies. Laughter filled the room as the children chatted about the music. Rosa knelt to their level, passing out cookies and asking about their favorite songs. She discovered that one boy loved the sound of drums. Another girl dreamed of singing in a choir. Rosa listened with warm interest. Mrs. Hernandez watched closely. She realized that the lessons were more than music classes. They were moments of connection. Children learned patience, focus, and the joy of creation. Parents learned to cheer their children's small victories. Rosa found new purpose in sharing her gift. Over the next few weeks, the lessons became a regular event. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, the community center room filled with children's chatter and the soft sounds of beginner pieces. Rosa taught them simple melodies first, then introduced new challenges. She encouraged them to practice at home and asked parents to check in on their progress. Gradually, small concerts of student recitals took place, each one ending in claps and proud smiles. Meanwhile, in the Hernandez household, the piano never stood silent. Mr. Hernandez carved out time each evening to practice along with Rosa, learning a duet piece called Sunrise Waltz. He worked diligently, smoothing his rough finger movements into gentle chords. Isabella sat by, offering tea and soft applause after each attempt. Javier recorded their sessions on his phone and cheered them on. One evening, as they practiced the duet, Mrs. Hernandez stood in the doorway and watched the scene.
Oh.
The family had grown closer, united by music. They laughed when Mr. Hernandez stumbled over a passage, and Rosa helped him patiently, her calm kindness filling the room. Isabella hummed along to keep time, and Javier offered playful commentary like a sports announcer. Their jokes were kind, born of love and pride rather than teasing. Outside, the jasmine bloomed late into the night. Inside, the piano rose and fell in a gentle dance of melody. It was as though the house itself had become an instrument of harmony, its notes weaving through every corner. By the end of the month, the town planned a community recital. All of Rosa's students, alongside her duet with Mr. Hernandez, would perform. Posters went up around town, and invitations slipped under neighbors' doors. On the day of the recital, the community center hall buzzed with excitement. Chairs filled quickly with families and friends. The stage glowed under warm lights. Rosa arrived first, dressed in a simple white blouse and dark skirt. She carried her sheet music and took a moment to breathe deeply. She looked at the empty stage and felt both calm and thrilled. This recital was not just hers, but a celebration of every child who had dared to press a key for the first time. One by one, the children performed their pieces. Some played softly, hands trembling. Some played with bold confidence, beaming at the applause. Many hit a wrong note or two, but the audience cheered anyway, their applause full of warmth. Rosa felt tears in her eyes as she watched their courage. At the end of the children's performances, it was Rosa and Mr. Hernandez's turn. They sat side by side at the piano. The soft hush fell. Rosa nodded to Mr. Hernandez, and together they began Sunrise Waltz. The opening notes were gentle, then rose into a bright, flowing melody. Their fingers moved in harmony. The room seemed to lift as the music carried everyone's hearts. When the last note faded, the hall erupted in applause. Rosa and Mr. Hernandez stood and bowed. The children ran forward to hug their teacher. Parents called out their pride. Rosa felt a swell of happiness, so strong she thought her chest might burst. She looked at Mr. Hernandez, his eyes shining, and at Isabella hugging a shy student. She realized then that the simple note she had played at the Hernandez home had grown into this moment, a garden of music, laughter, and connection. After the recital, the community gathered outside under the fragrant jasmine trees. Cups of tea and plates of cookies passed from hand to hand. Neighbors chatted about their favorite pieces. Children ran through the garden, still humming their songs. Rosa stood in the middle, surrounded by the family and friends who supported. Her dream, Mr. Hernandez raised his cup. To Rosa, he said, voice ringing in the night air, for showing us the wonder in a single note. Glasses clinked and voices cheered. Rosa felt tears of joy. She raised her cup and drank, tasting the sweetness of community and kindness. That night, as Rosa lay in bed, she thought of her journey. From the quiet maid who cleaned floors and prepared meals, to the teacher who guided young hearts, to the artist who played for a full hall. She whispered a prayer of thanks. She thought of the first note she played in the Hernandez living room, the single sound that changed everything. She smiled, closed her eyes, and drifted to sleep. In her dreams, a piano played beneath a sky of stars. Each note shone like a light, and every melody carried the promise of tomorrow. And in her heart, Rosa knew that as long as she had music, there would always be wonder, connection, and the gift of seeing others truly.